Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how I change the brake pads on my VTR250. These are the things that you'll be needing. First of all, you need a set of front brake pads. I got this red Daytona set. It's sort of like the middle of the line, mid-range brake pads. You'll also want some brake cleaner, a torque wrench, and brake pad grease. And I also used that wrench there with a rag over it to turn the pistons instead of a piston turner. Okay, the first thing you want to do is remove the little cap for the slide pin. It's got a minus drive with a minus screwdriver. I already removed that. What I'm doing next is I'm using a hex driver to loosen the slide pin. Just loosen it, because it will be hard to loosen it once you take the caliper off. Next, you're going to be using a 12mm wrench to remove these two bolts that are holding the caliper onto the fork. After removing those two bolts, you should be able to slide the caliper off the disc and remove the caliper like so. The next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to fully remove the slide pin. I loosened it earlier, so now you just need to loosen it all the way and pull it out. This pin holds the brake pads in place. Once you remove the pin, the brake pads should slide out easily, and the springs might also pop out as well. There's one spring on either end. See that one just dropped there? Make sure you don't lose those. You want to set those aside and make sure that you clean those as well before reinstalling them. Okay, after removing the brake pads and the pins, you can see clearly just how dirty the pistons are. We're going to get to work in cleaning those up real well before we put the pads on. Okay, so I'm going to be using a lot of brake cleaner or parts cleaner on the caliper and on the pistons just to loosen up the dirt. I'm using an old toothbrush here to scrub the pistons, the parts that I can reach as well as I can, and also the caliper and the parts where that hold the spring. Here I'm pumping the front brake a bit to push the pistons out a little. Make sure you don't pump it too much so that the pistons don't pop out completely, spilling brake fluid all over the place. But do push them out a bit, and you'll see a line where the grime goes up to where the pistons usually show. There will be a line where it's quite dirty. And then the parts that are usually in the caliper will be a little bit cleaner. But do try to get it past that line and get all that grime off. Now, once you've cleaned the parts that you can, see I'm using a wrench here, pliers covered with an old t-shirt or an old rag, and I'm going to grip the piston and slowly turn it. This is a nice alternative if you don't have piston turners or if you don't want to fork out the $20-30 to buy the piston turners. I'm also using some fine grade sandpaper. The recommended grade of sandpaper is 2000, but I think you could get away with around 1000 or so. You want to use the sandpaper that you can use with water, that's often used for body work on cars and things like that, not the type for woodwork or things like that. Anyways, you want to get all that grime off as best you can, turning the pistons and using the toothbrush and also the sandpaper and brake cleaner. Okay, here's how the pistons and the caliper look after giving it a good scrub. You can see that it's brought back its shine again, and they actually move quite easily. Here's a before. This is what it looked before scrubbing. All that brake dust is now gone, and here is after, looking quite a lot cleaner and it moving much more smoothly when I pump the front brake. Okay, the next thing you want to do is you want to push those pistons back into the caliper now, all the way or as far as they will go. It can be a little bit tough. There is a special tool that you can use for that too, or a clamp. You can kind of jerry rig something like that. do that, but basically you want space so that you can put those nice fat new brake pads back into place. Okay, before putting the brake pads back in, you want to clean the two springs and also the slide pin real well. Again, use parts cleaner, and you can use a bit of that same sandpaper to scrub off any brake dust or rust or anything like that. Alright, here's a comparison shot of the new brake pads and the old brake pads. I don't know if you watched one of my motovlogs, but I had to do an emergency brake pad change on the rear because those were completely gone. So I just wanted to go ahead and do these a little bit earlier. I knew I had some left. They're not as worn as I thought they would be, but they weren't gripping quite so well. Maybe it's because they were just really dirty. I did try cleaning them, but you can tell they've got a little bit of life left in them. But I'm going to go ahead and switch them out to the same type of brake pads that I put on my rear, so that will be all matching, and I'll have that same kind of feel when I brake. Before installing the new brake pads, I'm putting brake pad grease on the back of the pads and where the springs will be in contact with the pads. What this is supposed to do is it's supposed to prevent that squeaking or squealing that you sometimes get when braking. Please, it's important to make sure that you don't allow any grease to get onto the brake pad that comes in contact with the disc at all, as that will severely and negatively affect your braking performance. If you do, you want to clean that off real well. Okay, after putting the grease on the brake pads, you want to install the brake pads into the caliper, and once you've got that set, make sure you haven't forgotten the springs. Put the springs in first, the pads, and then you want to put the slide pin in place to lock the brake pads in place. Go ahead and tighten that as well. And the next thing you want to do is slide the caliper into place, making sure that the brake pads are properly positioned around the disc, and you want to put those bolts back in. Tighten it with the 12mm bolt on the torque wrench. The torque setting for these bolts is 30 Newton meters. Make sure to tighten the slide pin with the torque wrench as well at 18 Newton meters. And there you have it. That's how to change the front brake pads and clean the pistons on your motorbike, on your Honda VTR250. After doing that, you want to also make sure to check the front brakes to make sure that they work. You can walk it like I'm doing here and pump the front brake lever and make sure that they work really well before taking it out for a ride. Alright guys, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope to see you next time.